So my husband plans a vacation for us, and keep in mind we needed one. However, he decides to invite his mother-in-law. Oh, I'm not okay with that, but long story kinda short, I deal with it. So imagine my surprise when he shows up telling me, "Get ready for the trip, baby, we're about to go," and then he pulls out his wallet and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to buy your ticket. It's too late now, so I'm going to go by myself with my mother-in-law." That's right, I'm not invited, guys, but the story is just getting started. I grew up with the notion that marriage is a safe venture that creates a secure harbor where you have deep sense of assurance in an atmosphere that exudes warmth and affection beyond the ordinary and casual relationship that you've engaged in. Even the foundational relations of the family you stemmed from. I thought it gave one a distinctive consciousness of ownership that protruded beyond the sphere of rage and clamor generated by the constant struggle and sweating of insecure people while trying to just pave the way for a union that's established on the grounds of a love affair, as it is usually called. I set forth to make a new life with this mind, to have a husband I could call my own, to be free from competing with other ladies, and after all, two shall become one, and what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. Funny enough, that's what I hear often when I attend marriages. Wait, it was even rehearsed at our wedding, I remember very vividly, when the officiating priest pronounced those words with such assertion that fueled my confidence. That is, by the way, I got into this life-changing institution called marriage, hoping to make a meaningful impact on myself, my hubby, and the historical record of marital life. I was so excited that my one had become two, and our two had intertwined into one. It was such a mystery, but amusing. I never envisioned a third party because I was so comfortable with just the two of us. After all, it was two that were joined at the altar, not three. But such is life, as they say. Life gives you surprises that wow you and put you on mute until you get yourself together to think of what to say, what to do, and even what not to do. It happened to me in my marriage to Bill. What seemed like a chilling ocean, inviting and exploring an enthusiastic swim, became an exhausting, infuriating struggle, and oopsie, I didn't even get a life jacket because I thought I had mastered the art of swimming. It's really good to be futuristic and always be on the mark to get in motion when it's time for flight. Okay, guys, let's cut to the chase. I became a realistic example of the saying that a woman does not just marry a man but also his family. I thought this was just related to maintaining a quality, peaceful interaction from a distance, but my mother-in-law changed that idea of distance into a life full of drama in my own home. Two became three in a nutshell, and that was not funny. It was a sunny day on the weekend after I had come back from a get-together organized by my friend, Roland, to mark his promotion. See, Roland is a smart, intelligent young man with an insightful prospect of really what he wants in this lifetime. We went to the same college and got along fine, but just as friends. Nothing more. And if I had not met Bill, who knows if our innocent friendship would have turned into an intentional courtship and subsequently a blissful union. These are just my thoughts, though. After graduation, he started out as an assistant human resource manager at a company that regulates technical services. But soon, he came across a better and larger company in the same field. He was spotted by some high-ranking professionals whom he was privileged to connect with during his stay in his former workplace, and they recruited him based on his adept knowledge and excellent input. He had only joined his current company a few years ago, and before he knew it, his position skyrocketed to the general manager of all issues relating to technical wares throughout the company's branches. Internationally, at least. He could not keep his joy to himself, so he thought it right to organize a great party to mark the occasion. I was happy for him and could not miss out on the exhilarating moment, so I took the time to attend, and it was just a weekend. And since Bill wasn't around, I didn't mind creating room for some fun. We just needed it sometimes to cool off from my mental stress. I reached home late in the afternoon, relaxed for a few minutes on the sofa, thinking of what exactly I should be doing next. I would have loved to rest more and probably watch some movies, but I had to go ahead and go cook. Though I was still full as I had a lot to eat from the menu on my outings. Well, that was just me, though. Bill would have to eat something when he came back, so I decided to find something to cook for him, whom I thought would be arriving from his sudden trip anytime soon. In the early hours of the day before that, he had received a strange call from someone anonymous to me. As usual, he stylishly moved out of the room as if the network was bad, but I knew he did that to avoid letting me in on his conversation. He had been acting weird lately, and whenever I tried to corner him, he either acted like a person who had lost his way, trying to get back on track, or a wounded person who didn't want to be touched on the injury spot. Guys, to stress it, whenever I tried to extract facts from him, he acted like the victim who, under work pressure, has been diagnosed with some temporal loss of memory, saying something like, "Oh, did I say that?" I was surprised that morning when he hurried back into the room and went to the wardrobe as if there was an emergency. So, when I asked him what had happened and how it was related to the phone call, trying to see how I could get a grip on his mind, he just told me that something urgent has come up from work, and he needed to make a short trip. An urgent call requesting immediate attention to go on a journey was something entirely strange for me. Ever since he switched his job role from the engineering to the accounting team, his work had been much less of a hustle, and he had more time for himself on Fridays and weekends, and I was getting used to excuses of him not coming home or telling lies that he went somewhere when he didn't, but not this kind of lie. I had caught him twice, one of which was when he lied that he was meeting up with a client, and then he was unknowingly turned in by his colleague, whom I acquaintanced with Mr. Patrick, called to confirm if he was home because he could not get through to him. And he said that he needed to attend to a client whose name happened to be the same as Bill accidentally mentioned. He wouldn't normally tell me the names of the clients, but he did this time, probably due to anxiety or trying to convince me that the, authenticity of his words, which were nothing more than lies. The client came earlier than the day scheduled, and Bill was not aware. They were to meet in the office and not in the town, and that was what I was told at least. Bill came back, and I asked him how the meeting had gone. He told me it went well. That's when I asked if his colleague had called him regarding a client, and he was stunned and became mute for some seconds before he declared, "Well, he first cleared his throat and tried to utter some words," giving me the impression that he had met a different client, but when I confronted him with the name he mentioned, he said I didn't hear him very well. And after I maintained that he told me that same name, he then diverted the blame on himself, and guess what he said? "Ugh, it must have been a slip of the tongue." Can you imagine a slip of the tongue? Well, the second time I called him in a big old lie was when he had thought that I was in the kitchen and did not know I entered the room. I intentionally was eavesdropping on him as he was in the toilet. I couldn't hear him clearly, but I knew he was talking to someone he knew from a close angle and not just a casual acquaintance. Before he came out, I already stepped back from the door, but he was shocked to see me and asked what I was doing in the room. I asked if I was not welcome any time in my own room. He said that he thought I was making sandwiches, and I responded that I've come to pick up my phone from the room, and he acted awkward but tried to hide it. And then I shocked and asked if he was calling Clara. One of his colleagues and also friend, and I did not make it look like I stalked him, but I tried not to ask directly about whom he was talking to. Then he answered bluntly and said, it was a client." I smiled and thought that he had known. He could have just admitted he was talking to Clara. At least the free-flowing tone would have been justified a little, and I let him know that I sensed the mode of conversation, and that it sounded pretty formal, pretty informal to me. I asked him if he was well acquainted with the client and was able to talk freely in that manner. Then he gets upset and said I didn't trust him and that I was behaving like a stalker. That was what I was avoiding, but he still said it anyways. Ever since then, I've become more mindful and careful of how I approach him, and have tried to plan properly to see how I could get to the root of this mysterious thing happening someday. But that morning, I could not ask many questions. Seeing how he was in a hurry, I only tried to confirm if it wasn't a serious problem, and he said it was just a normal work phone call. which I obviously knew was not normal for such a day. I held my peace and let him live in peace, and I never loved to be a nagging wife, and I tried my best to control my temper during all these times he acted eccentrically. That's just another phase of marriage that has not been interesting to me, bottling up your emotions to let peace reign. Well, guys, back to the day of my outing. I was still in the kitchen preparing my favorites when I heard the knock of the door and the honk of his car. He was finally home, and even though I wasn't so excited to receive him back, I was grateful that he's come back home safe. I couldn't just wrap my head around why he had become so darn mysterious out of nowhere, but I washed my hands and moved to the living room to welcome him. But before I opened up that door, I heard an unexpected voice. It was a woman's voice, and somehow deep. How come this voice sounds so much like my mother-in-law's? It could not be her, because my husband never told me he was going to bring her, I mused. I peeped to confirm or dispose of my confusion, and oh boy, I was dumbfounded. I asked myself why he had brought her so suddenly. Before I could open the door, she, already at the forefront, had stumped into the living room. I quickly composed myself and tried hard to cheer up while I greeted her. But as usual, her response was cold and unfriendly. The truth be told, that woman never liked me. We got it all mixed up from the beginning, so we never really clicked. My mother-in-law nags a lot, and it's difficult to comprehend. On this short note, you should perceive that she's difficult to please. In fact, sometimes I think she just hates my guts for no justifiable reason, and I never feel comfortable around her. Left to her, she would never have allowed her son to marry me in the first place. Someone who is irritable is just out of it for me. Whatever interaction I've ever had with her was a pain because she was always out to get me, and if possible, it frustrates me. I let my husband come in and managed to give him a little hug before asking why he didn't tell his mother was coming over so that I could have prepared something nice for her to eat. That wasn't my intention. I just made that part up out of curiosity to know what was going on. Well, Bill responded with one of the most questionable replies that he's ever given me. He told me he's been planning for a vacation since he would be taking his yearly leave from work shortly, but if it was just that, why bring his mother along? According to him, he wanted his mom to live with us so that we could all go on a vacation together. As good as it should have sounded, it was not pleasant to hear. I could understand having a nice time with my husband, but my mother-in-law being a third wheel was hard for me to figure out. And come to think of it, even if that was so, why should I be hearing it for the first time after he had brought her home? And he even had the guts to tell me that in front of her? What impression would she have had, I thought? If my husband did not respect me enough to share his plans with me, but only decided on his own, then I wouldn't be surprised if other members of his family treated me worse too. While I was boiling within and short of words to express my disappointment, I managed to ask her what she would like to eat, as I didn't know that she was even coming. She sluggishly answered me to make her baked potatoes and steak, which I quickly sourced since we were short of potatoes at home. During the evening time, I didn't feel free to watch my favorite soap operas in the living room because she was there. I mean, my mother-in-law. She wasn't really concentrating on the TV, but just watching her phone. She can be a freak when it comes to phone usage. I mean, she's familiar with all the social media platforms and has an account on almost every one of them, and she's very fond of seeking attention and wanting to be the center of the show. Even though I knew she was more interested in her phone, I also knew she would find fault if I dared to change the TV station. So I just let it slide and went into my room, where Bill was doing only God knows what with his phone. He saw me come in and quickly repositioned himself, trying to quit whatever he was doing on the phone, and I knew he was chatting with someone. I could tell with the smiling expression on his face, but I didn't know who and what use would asking him be since he was no longer on track for honesty, so I didn't even bother him. Back to our earlier discussion. I continued by telling him how displeased I was with his unsolicited actions. He told me he had the right to bring his own mother with him on a vacation. In order not to appear as a little devil, I explained that I did not mind his mom being around, but the main thing he did wrong was not tell me his plans. The annoying fact was that he had already knew that his mother hated me, and yet he did this anyways. I suspected he had an ulterior motive, but he didn't, give me enough proof. Yet. So I tried to close the chapter as I would not want to drag it beyond measure, and I'm confused even at this moment and would not mind some advice. Guys, my question to you is, what should I do now that I'll be going on a trip with my mother-in-law? Should I still try to convince my husband to leave her out of it? Or no? Comment number 1 from Tanya_Adams says, I think you should just turn a blind eye to whatever she does. It takes two to fight, as they say, and you also need to be careful so that it won't come crashing down on you. Seeing how your husband cherishes her. Anyways, best luck on your trip. Comment number 2 from Scotty Frederick. You're a brave lady, seeing how you manage your husband and his tricks. As for your mom-in-law, just bear a little with her. She'll be out of your hair before you know it, and she can't stay with you forever. I advise you to take things slowly. Meanwhile, try to find a means to track them and see what's up. But be prepared, girl, because I suspect that your husband is having an affair. And his mother could be aware of it. Who knows these days? Since she's never liked you and all, just be strong. No man deserves you stressing yourself this much. Update number 1. Please support the channel by pressing the subscribe button. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your comments. They really encouraged me. I've decided to just keep a cool head until my mom-in-law leaves, although something is very, very unexpected that's been happening. Even though I seem to be stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea, I was anticipating the trip, hoping for some space to have a bit of fun. I assumed she wouldn't always follow us around in our lodge and hoped she could just glue her eyes to her phone per usual so that I could steal some free time with Bill. It had really been a long time since we went on a vacation, and finally Bill got back from the travel agency. And out of curiosity and a little excitement, I asked him to let me see the tickets. Then he acted out a drama that was so far from being hilarious. He brought out just 2 tickets, and when I saw them, I sincerely hoped in my heart that he had changed his mind about his mother coming with us, but not in my wildest imagination could I have thought that Bill could do what he did next. Whether it was intentional or not, it was beyond my grip. He suddenly acted surprised and confused and, told me he was sorry. He said his card limit was reached when he was booking the tickets, and he got tickets for 2, and guess what? I was exempt. He also went further to say the most upsetting part of it, that he was going to sort it out, but he forgot. Again, he blamed it on his forgetful memory, and I had taken it too lightly when he complained about being absent-minded, but when he took it this far, I was in absolute shock. But no matter how furious I was, there was nothing I could do to him. I just paced up and down in the living room, brewing with anger, which I tried so hard to suppress so that I would not explode. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, was having some refreshments outside on the balcony. I'm sure she heard our conversation, but pretended as if she heard nothing. I knew she was good at eavesdropping, and was probably gaining pleasure from the spat that was going on inside. I could obviously smell a fish, which was not the one I was steaming in the kitchen, but I could not just trace it. I tried hard to calm my nerves and then followed Bill, who had already left me for the room. I tried to know what was in his mind, and he then told me that I was overthinking, that he actually was forgetful, and besides, it was just a short vacay. That should not get me so worked up whether I was going or not. He went ahead and advised me on the tasks that I could undertake while they were away and how I could create time to have some fun. After all, it wasn't only a trip to Los Angeles that could relieve a person from stress. Oh, by the way, that's where they were going. They finally left for their vacation, while I was left to chill with myself at home. I didn't have much to expect. I was just watching TV and doing some chores. My house help taken permission to visit her sick father, so I had to take care of the house on my own, and I'm just so beyond mad and racking my brain for the next move. Should I track them in case I could find out something, and how? Or should I just let it be and wait for Bill's return to sort things out? Please, I desperately need your help. Update Number 2. Hey guys, well, it's me and I am back. I'm back with a plan, and I sincerely appreciate your support. I decided to take a step to clear my mind and define the situation better. So after I left here 2 days ago, I went to the room and scanned through his closet. I observed every corner of the cabinet, but I was let down once again. Nothing to hold. I gave my mind a rigorous scrutiny to lay hold on any useful idea, and bingo, I got it. I could stealthily gain access to my mother-in-law's Facebook account, and as I said earlier, she is a social media freak and likes to let her followers in on updates about her life, and now I had to pick up my phone, and I quickly created a new profile with a fake identity because she had previously blocked me from accessing her account. What a strange relationship, am I right? It's what I thought too. I managed to create the account and searched for her on Facebook, but I couldn't get through to her at first because the name I knew she used did not bring up her profile. I suspected she did a username change. I wondered what she could have changed it to, whether it was, I don't know, I was going to find out. I tried to think long and hard and remembered that she had a nickname that she was often called by her close pals. She had claimed the name when she was younger and felt so big and important whenever she was called that. Wendy Bay. It was the name that popped into my mind, though her real name is Tracy. I heard that she liked the name Wendy ever since she was young, but I wouldn't know how she got the attachment. Bay, that is better to know her. Who cares? In a nutshell, I entered Wendy Bay, and there she was, with her sharp eyes and round face. It could have been a compliment if she was amiable, but she's just that. For me, nothing complimentary. I immediately sent a request to follow her to see how I could track them down, but it wouldn't be so fast, and I knew that. They left home not long ago, and it would take some hours for them to land. So I waited patiently, giving them time to settle, organize themselves and whatnot, and set out for their fun little moments. I also tried to distract myself from doing things I enjoyed a little, while awaiting the moment that I would track them. The only downside here was that I had to pray so hard that our Wendy Bay would accept my request to follow her. And finally, a few hours flew by and I logged into Facebook and bada bing, bada boom. There she was. She had accepted my request, and I mean, they would not, when she needed to boast about how many followers she had gotten from her friends. My mother-in-law never disappointed me when it comes to showing off. She already had tons of snapshots on her page, showcasing their arrival at the airport in different poses, carrying her followers along in her every move. Social media was more of an obsession for her. I knew this on the day she posted about a restroom where she, went to shop for groceries, describing how it did not meet her standards. I think retirement gave her more work than we could imagine, unfortunately shifting her focus to either trouble-stirring things or frivolities. While checking on the pictures, I thought I saw someone behind, but he was face down with a brown hat. I just felt he was a co-traveler since he wasn't so close, and I held on for a while, but the page was static. Then I decided to check back, but still found nothing more. I thought they needed time to rest before formally launching their vacation, so I gave them some time. Yeah. It was, about bedtime when I thought of visiting my people and seeing how they were faring, and I never even expected I could find much since it was late at night, but to my amazement, my people weren't as tired as I thought. They still had time for a beach walk, so I suspected there was one located near the hotel where they lodged, and it was a little crowded. So I just thought some other people randomly appeared in the pictures, and since it was night, I could not make much out of it. Not what I saw, because my mom was concentrating on herself at the time. I could only see Bill appear in some of the pictures, most of which were part of his body, either half face or back, and at this point I wasn't sure if I was putting myself through torture or not. They were flexing, and I was snooping around to catch a glimpse of their escapades. Not fair to me, right? As I would say, such is life. So let's fast forward to the next morning. I forced my heavy eyes open, feeling weak due to sleeplessness throughout the night, and they must have had a really splendid evening, while leaving me to battle with my nightmares, and I mumbled some words of prayer and got up to wash my face. I didn't even care for a shower before picking up my phone to continue where I stopped. And yes, of course, there were floods of pictures on her page. Wow, this woman will never stop to amuse me. Without words, I could describe how cozy and comfy her room was, including the toilet. Incredible. My husband did not lag behind. He snapped himself into a corner of his lodge. He was always mindful of his actions because he knew that I could easily track him through his Facebook account so that he could not post many pictures. And he also knew his mom had blocked me and probably felt at ease. That morning passed by and afternoon came. I couldn't get my head straight on anything as I was busy checking for updates. I couldn't believe he turned me into a spy, a snoop, a stalker. I was just so curious about where this was leading to, and finally the explosion came, and boom. My mother-in-law posted clear pictures displaying 4 distinctive individuals that were well known to me, and guess who they were? Aside from her, they were my husband, Ray, and Anne. See, Ray is her longtime friend, and Anne is Ray's daughter. It wasn't just them standing like a statue either. But my hubby had this romantic posture with Anne, who conveniently lays her head on his chest and had his hand on her head, which they had this weird smile about their flat faces. My mother-in-law was always asking Bill to marry her friend's daughter, Anne, even when Bill had already proposed to me, and I don't know how, but I feel like I'm done with this crap. I mean, how could it be so easy for Bill to just give up on me? Anne must have tried to tempt him, considering she always found ways to seduce him. Whenever we went to visit our family, my mother-in-law would always invite Anne. I don't know for what godforsaken reason, but I believe she has succeeded in doing what she had planned to do all this while. This man is going to face the wrath of my goddessness. Now, the gods are not to blame for this strike. In addition to the explosion, they did not go to the L.A. Nope. They did not go to Los Angeles, but to Miami. I could see the inscription on the restaurant behind me as my mother-in-law's post, which wrote, "My family and I flexing in Miami." You and your family? Then who am I asked myself, chop liver. So this had been her plan all along, to hook Anne up with Bill. No problem. I'm waiting for the return, even though I don't know what to do next. Poisoning them wouldn't even solve the problem. I'm just so mixed up. Any advice, please? Final update. Hello, everyone. Thank you for all the best wishes. It's been a while, honestly, because I've been busy trying to put things in their place. After our last interaction, I made a decision. Tit for tat. It was. I honestly empathize with women who have gone through terrible things at the hands of men. I used to blame them before, saying that they were not patient and were too hot-blooded, but the reality is that you learn by experiencing certain things that you have failed to learn through sensible observation. I am here relating to them more than ever. I didn't used to like the idea of shouting and nagging because it just made me feel lower than my self-esteem and self-worth, and that's why I've tried in these years to be calm as much as I could and play the mature role. But I couldn't just continue like this, otherwise I would always be trampled on. I waited, and I waited for their return and welcomed them with this fake enthusiasm. They did not know what they were in for, and I prepared a delicious meal for them and acted normal. But some days later, I went over to Roland, who fortunately had a short break from work, and I explained my situation. He empathized with me. He was furious and ready to lend me a helping hand and with whatever I needed. I laid down my game plan, and he complied. A few days later, I told my husband I was going to make a short trip to visit my friend, whom I haven't seen in a while. So Roland and I met, and cut the story short, we landed in Miami, baby. We lodged in the same hotel, visited the same places, and yes, I took time to snap enough pictures to compromise all these, postures and posted them on my social media. To my surprise, it didn't even take 10 minutes when my phone started ringing off the hook. It was Bill making accusations and threats. I asked him what he was thinking and how he felt to be paid back the same coin. Guys, he was so dumbfounded and realized his mom's social media slaying. I gave her away. Only that I could not bring myself to go practical. It was all a show of revenge, and this still hurts me. His mother was speechless when I arrived home. I was furious when Bill had the audacity to confront me. I yelled at him for doing what he did, and I reminded him that he was the one who was cheating in our marriage while I only pretended to give him the taste of his own medicine.
I even told him that I should have married Ronald. At least I would have been happier with him than with Bill, who was a total jerk in the end. And my mother-in-law opened up her mouth to say something, but shouted at her too. I told her that if she was happy after supporting her son, then she should be ashamed of herself by doing something like this to another woman. As if something had snapped, Bill turned towards his mother and started blaming her for letting Anne tempt him and supporting him to give in to her temptations. I mean, it was absurd to my ears to listen to Bill admit all this, but I was done for God's sake. I told Bill that I was signing divorce papers and he could go back to his little mistress, but I'd make damn sure to get the most out of it. I told him he had no doubt about anything here because I was going to have him pay for what he's done. I threatened to expose his little dirty trip to his colleagues and boss, and he starts crying and begging on his knees not to do that because he could lose his job. He had nothing to defend himself this time. Surprisingly, my mother-in-law became awkward and left a few days later, leaving me and my bottled husband to tidy up whatever was left for our marriage. Ronald helped me a lot in finding the best lawyer and getting what I wanted. So guys, thank you to all the support, all the kind words. You've been absolutely amazing, and I just hope to have a nice gist to share from now on, and that'll be it. Comment number 1 from Jennifer.F. I'm happy for you, my strong lady. I mean, I really am. I hope your husband learns his lesson and never, ever messes with you again. Besides that, I mean, he shouldn't, or else I'm sure that he'll get that tit-for-tat stuff again. I believe all men are like him, total jerks. They think that they can treat a woman however they want and then cheat on them once they're done with them. I shouldn't say this, but Ronald seems like a decent fella. Why don't you consider going out with him? But that's just my stupid idea. Ignore it, please. All the best. Comment number 2 and final comment of the story before we send it over to Mr. Reddito Cam. You're tough to have scaled through all that crap. I wish you better days in your marriage, and let your mother-in-law never come between you again. I don't want her to ever bother you. I just feel it is a little off that your mother-in-law got to go away so easily. I hope her husband gives a piece of his mind once he comes to know about this, but anyways, good for you. It did turn out well.
You know, guys, this whole time I was sitting there just hoping OP would get with Roland. I mean, Roland was the guy throughout the story, her best friend, that was always there in support of her. Why was OP putting up with this mama's boy for so long? And I do think it's hilarious at the end she decides to threaten to expose him to his job, but a lot of the commenters didn't really agree with that. Some of them, in the original story, they were saying no, OP should have just distanced herself. It was obvious that that relationship was never going to work out. But at the same time, I don't know. I kind of like some good old-fashioned revenge, or karma, or whatever you want to call it. Anyways, guys, here's the question for today's story. If you were in OP's shoes, what would you have done? Let me know in details down below in our comment section, guys. My name is Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every single day. If you want to be a part of this and also support the channel at the exact same time, all you have to do is subscribe. It's free, it takes a second. Click that button, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.